Thank you for coming. It may impact the agenda. Could you just let me know what you're here for? How many of you are here for the Seacrest issue?
That's the answer.
That's the answer right there. I think maybe we'll move it up on the agenda, just so you're not here much longer than you'd like to be, if that's okay?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, we'll do that, good.
I like that.
So you need a motion?
Yeah, he's got to get it.
When I get there,
He's
Yes.
got to go. Kevin's not here. Bob's going to get him.
Oh, okay.
They
Wait,
so close he walks here, he's
I
next
know,
door.
right.
He's going to retrieve him.
That's
He
okay.
did, he was right here. Okay, so in which case we'll begin. We always begin with public comment. If you're here to talk about something that is not on the agenda, now is the time to do it. And if you want to speak at any time during the meeting, please go to that microphone, because if you speak from where you are, the people on FCTV don't hear you, whereas that microphone connects to FCTV. So come to the microphone, give us your name, and say what it is you want to speak on, please. So is there anyone who wishes to speak on something not on the agenda? Not usually. Okay, in that case, minutes. Paul is not here.
So then I move that we continue the minutes till the next, table the minutes, table the minutes till the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
They're tabled. Okay, I'd like a motion to move the agenda, to move the second item, Falmouth Resorts Owner LLC site plan review, up to be first on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this is then a public meeting that's now open, and Mr. Iment is going to speak on this proposal
Can I
first.
ask
Yes,
Jed a question first?
sure.
I'm trying to find where I saw it. But I read something when I first read the notes that, I think it was a mistake. It said that it was BR zoning instead of RB. It's not business redevelopment, it's residential business. I believe it's a pre-existing non-conforming use. But the notes that we saw referred to it as business
A typo.
redevelopment.
Yeah.
A typo, you fixed that.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a little confused by that, but we're all set.
Okay,
Madam Chair?
Yes.
The public hearing notice, perhaps.
oh, do we have it here? Or
I don't have it.
A lot of people do that, they get them backwards.
It's just the notification, publication dates, and number of the butters.
Okay, public notice was mailed to 76 abutters by regular mail on September 22nd.
Okay, so we've had a public notice. Mr. Ament.
Mr. Clower. Good afternoon, Kevin Clower. I am here tonight representing Falmouth Resort Owner LLC. They are the owner of the Seacrest property located at 350 Quaker Road. I'm joined tonight by Clark Gwynn, who's the general manager of Seacrest, as well as Romy Bajwani, who is the head of asset management for Hersher Hospitality, which is one of the groups involved in the ownership here. I'm also joined by Tim Santos of Merrill Engineers and Greg Sarunian from Rescom Architecture. We are before you tonight seeking to modify the existing property, which currently operates as a 253-room hotel with associated restaurant and function space. What's proposed is 4 duplex buildings located at the northern end of the existing parking lot, an alteration of a portion of an existing building into an additional unit, which would result in the addition of 9 units to the room count here. This project requires multiple levels of approval, obviously requires site plan review from the planning board. Also, the filing of a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission, for which an order of conditions was recently approved and issued. And also a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Commercial accommodations are allowed in both the B3 zoning district and the residential B zoning district by special permit. And we'll have to modify the existing special permits, of which I think there's 4. This is a 21.14 acre site. It's split zoned between Business 3 and Residential B, as I mentioned, both of which allow for commercial accommodations by special permit. This is a really beautiful piece of property, and I think all of us have been there, so I don't want to waste time belaboring that point, but it is. It is recently under new ownership, so there's been a real hard look at ways to improve the property. So what's being proposed there are the units located, again, at the northern end, in a location of existing developed areas, though we're replacing the tennis courts. As proposed, there's no change to the existing parking areas. The new buildings will be flood zone compliant, and they'll be elevated such that the parking is located underneath. There's no change to existing traffic flow or site design outside of this specific area of development. The proposed lot coverage by structure will be 14.4%, well below the 20% allowed by right. And the lot coverage by structure, paving, and parking will only be at 35.2, also well below what is allowed there. The current special permits allow for up to 266 units. The bylaw itself allows for up to 332 units based on the square footage of the site. Currently, there are 253 units. As proposed, will be 262. With all the uses, both existing and proposed, required parking spaces here are 362 spaces. There are 373 provided, of which 13 are handicap. This isn't a significant departure from what's on site. It's an improvement to the existing landscaping, resulting in reduction of hardscape by over 6,000 square feet. It serves the location and intent appropriately. We're aware of the concerns stated by some of the abutters, specifically regarding noise and light. A lighting plan was submitted. There is minimal lighting located at the rear of the buildings, all of which will be dark sky compliant. And as to noise, the decks at the rear are relatively small, intended for relaxation, not for congregation. There's no proposed communal areas in the rear yard. Management has been working to address the concerns, including reaching out to abutters. I spoke with Mr. Gwynn this evening. He confirmed that there will be a night security guard who is on duty during quiet hours to make sure that there's no violation of those noise issues. We've also reviewed the staff reports and referrals. I don't believe that there's anything outstanding. The health referral did note that the property is under a DEP groundwater permit. That permit and the current plant has capacity to address the proposed units, and we'll, of course, need to address that through the DEP. I had a conversation with Michael Kasparian recently at the Chamber of Commerce. He told me that in 1990, there was over 2,000 hotel rooms in town, and there's currently less than 1,000. There is a need for commercial accommodations, especially on sites that are appropriate for it and are already designed for it. The applicant's seeking to continue to improve and to reinvest in this property, to be a good neighbor and a good corporate citizen. I believe that this meets all the criteria for special permit review, and I'd be glad to address any questions that this board might have.
I wonder if you could share with us, Kevin, the conditions that were given to you by the Conservation Committee. Didn't you just say that you have heard from them?
I did. I have a copy of the order of conditions if you'd like it for the file.
Yeah. And I don't know if others have had an opportunity. No, they have not. I wonder if you could just share them with all of us.
Specific conditions?
Yeah. Might be helpful.
I'll just note that it's all standard conditions. There's nothing unusual here. This is actually a reduction of hardscape of over 6,000 square feet. So they're not requiring any conditions outside of the typical ones. So under special conditions, it just says lawn within a 100-foot buffer. To all resource areas shall be seeded, not sod, with a drought-tolerant fescue on 8 to 10 inches of loam. The loam shall be of natural origin as defined by USDA. Pre-construction photos, all plantings to be from 2-gallon to 3-gallon containers and spaced 3 feet on center. All plantings to be maintained in good health, and all cutting debris to be kept out of the resource area. Construction site to be cleaned to remove any loose debris. No certificate of compliance will be issued until the entire project, including landscape, is completed and the site is permanently stabilized with vegetation. All of those are standard conditions for notification.
Right. Could you walk us through the landscape plan? Thank you.
So this is the existing site right now, and this is the area really in question. The landscape plan is shown here. So that existing hardscape is being removed, and there is new lawn being installed rather than the existing hardscape. So as I noted, that's going to be a 6,000 square foot reduction in hardscape on that portion of the site.
Could you point out what might shield people on the opposite side of the pond from looking directly at the lights that are generated by those duplexes?
So those, as I mentioned, will be dark sky compliant lighting. There's no fence here because we can't install a fence because of conservation. We could certainly look at some additional plantings that might work to shield, but, that'll be relative to ground, so, we're talking 6, 8 feet high. I'm not quite sure how we'd be able to shield much higher than that.
Because there seem to be very few plantings planned. Are there plantings planned for the area beyond the lawn?
That's the pond beyond the lawn. So beyond here, you're looking at Potter's Hole.
So the lawn goes almost up to the edge of the water.
Yep, so there are no required mitigation plantings because of the fact it's reduction in hardscape. So conservation wasn't requiring any mitigation plantings other than what were proposed, which is just for landscape design.
But you're willing to consider them?
Absolutely.
Before we go to public comment, are there any other questions from the board?
No.
Yes.
Pat?
You're saying you're putting in 9 new units. Okay. Is a typical unit in the current Seacrest 1-bedroom?
There is a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms in the existing.
Okay. Because these are all 2 to 3 bedrooms. And I don't know how the septage is considered, but it's usually by occupancy, and I would consider that I would not call one of these 1 unit when you compare it to the current units in the Seacrest. It's almost like 1 unit when you've got 2 to 3 bedrooms, or the capacity for 2 to 3 bedrooms is more than 1 unit.
Well, it's a suite. It's a unit
Yeah.
suite. So that still counts as 1 unit. However, septic is whatever DEP dictates the septic is measured
And it
by.
has to go to them. Okay.
And you said you have the capacity already.
Yes.
For all the occupancy, even if like one of the units can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in it, and the other side of it can have 4 people in it.
I mean, speaking on a personal level, I can tell you, I think that there is a real shortage of rooms like this. I have 4 children. If I go away, it's very difficult to find a hotel room that can accommodate my family. We try to find places that have suites, and there aren't that many of them, so I think this is something that's needed.
Kevin, I'm not arguing
Oh,
that.
I understand.
I'm not arguing that point. The point I'm arguing is that you need, for 9 buildings, you need 10 parking spots. What I'm arguing is, when you have the units that have that capacity, you may need more parking spaces, and I don't know what kind of a formula you can use to derive that.
So it's no different than you'd use for a house, actually. If you look at the architectural plans, each unit has capacity to park 2, and if you had a 3-bedroom house, you'd have requirement of 2 parking spaces. So we're providing the same level of parking as would be needed under that circumstance.
So you're right in that. I'm asking without any foreknowledge or
No, I understand.
preconceived ideas on this.
So that's been taken into consideration as part of the calculation of parking spaces, both required and proposed.
Okay.
Any other questions? What, Kevin, is the plan on renting these? Are these overnight rentals, short-term rentals? How do you picture them being used?
The same as the rest of the hotel housing
Just
stuff.
available by the night?
And some people might stay for 2 nights, 3 nights, or a week.
Thank you. Okay,
just-
public comment. Oh, Bob?
Kevin, could you go to sheet 2 of 8, existing conditions?
On site plan or site plan, Merrill, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to know what the shaded, the boxed areas that are shaded, why they're shaded like that,
These areas right here,
down below.
this area here.
Yeah, there's 3 of them side by side.
Good evening. For the record, Tim Santos from Merrill Engineers. Those 3 shaded boxes are the actual leaching field.
Okay.
So the leaching fields are all pulled back from the pond.
They're located, probably as equidistant from the pond and the beach as can be.
Any other question?
No, I'm good.
John?
No.
All set?
Okay, let's have public comment. You know, lately, on 2 occasions, public comment has gotten a little out of hand, and I'm hoping that doesn't happen with us tonight. Yes, one at a time, please come forward.
I'm standing up there to show, I wanted to show the lighting plan for one, and then the plants, lighting plans. You have a lighting plan in there. Do you
This is the-
remember?
this
And
is
you
the lighting
reference
plan.
the dark sky lighting?
Yep, this is the lighting
I
plan.
just wanted to point out, I built a new home, and I front Potter's Hole. I'm in a butter. I'm Ellen Ruland from Tukatuit.
Could you please repeat your name near the microphone? Thank you.
Ellen Ruland, Tukatuit Road. And I recently built a new home, a tear down, and built a new home on the footprint. Not allowed to increase bedrooms, and over 200 native plants on the tidal pond. So what struck me, and we were kind of blindsided by the speed at which this passed conservation, there are no mitigation plants there at all. Nothing, our homes all have them, but we're looking at the Seacrest parking lot around the centerpiece of our neighborhood, Potter's Hole. There are just maybe 6 homes around it. We all have dark sky at night, quiet, and a lot of trees and plants, and we have beautiful wildlife. Yesterday, there was a fox in my yard. We have osprey that lands in my oak tree every day, blue heron, egrets, owls, downy woodpeckers, and all kinds of little critters, rabbits and things. We really respect that tidal pond. So I'm concerned about the sudden 54 people would be accommodated in these new things. Each of them say 2 bedrooms plus den, and the den shows either a set of bunk beds or a pull-out sofa. So I know, having owned vacation rentals in Florida, people, that's what they put in there, 6 people. There would be a lot of noise. The dark sky lighting I wanted to show, I have all dark sky lighting on my new home. This kind of light is dark sky compliant because it doesn't shine up and light the sky, but it shines out, and it will shine out on the water and out toward our homes and in our windows. So I would hope that they have true dark sky lighting, which is more like a cone, and then there's a cone of light that creates a circle depending on how high you mount that. So you just light what's needed. I would like to see plants all around to keep trash from blowing over. One of the neighbors who couldn't be here tonight wrote me an email about she and her brother went over last year and filled 3 bags of trash that had blown over the embankment there. There's nothing to stop it now. There were tennis courts there. They were put in maybe in the late 70s. And there was a row of, they may have been just arborvitaes, but a row of evergreen shrubs across. So we didn't see the lights. We didn't hear the noise. We didn't see the parking lot. It was so much better. They took that out to expand the parking lot at some point, and they park buses there often. So it's not very attractive, but I'd rather look at that than all these people out on their decks, 54 people. I oppose the project. I'm in a butter, and I think the impact on traffic, the septic or sewer system, it's just a concern. It's a lot of people, and it's a non-conforming property, so I don't think they should be allowed to expand. I'd be happy to see them maybe tear down some of the dated units and put up new style, but not to increase their capacity.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I just have one quick comment. My name is Sarah Buckwalter. I'm at 35 Santuit Road. I just have one quick comment to follow up on the dark sky lighting. That is outdoor lighting. However, when you have sliding glass doors that lead out to a deck and all the lighting from inside can be as bright as you can be, that is what also shines out onto the pond and into the darkness. So that should be taken into consideration as well. because if there's that many people and the capacity coming in and out, the inside, it's going to light up the world as well. It's not just the lights on the outside, and the mitigation planting as well. As also stated before, that there are no tennis courts there, so I don't understand why they keep saying they're going to build over the tennis courts. There are no tennis courts there. It's just an empty piece of parking lot. So
Were at one point, isn't that right?
there were many years ago,
Yeah.
but there aren't now.
They're still there in thought.
And yes, in people's memories, I guess. But it being a non-conforming property as well, the size of this expansion is pretty significant. And as was mentioned, it's not just single units, it is multiple units, it's multiple people. It's a lot of additional people and traffic coming in and out of there. And it's just something we want to note, being in that neighborhood and already having the impact of the Seacrest on us. It's going to be significantly more, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? There are no other points that you wish to make. You've come a long way to just say nothing.
Did you receive the letter that we wrote?
We did, and I'm very impressed with the number of people who are named on it. It looks as if you took the membership of the organization and named them all.
Not at all. Oh, we did not do that. We sent that out to people.
Ballot.
We had our neighborhood meeting on September 4th, and people, I'm supposed to speak.
Yeah, you are, sorry.
I can tell them how those are actually people that asked to co-sign. They asked to co-sign.
Yeah, so of our homeowners association, there's about 130 plus homes. And we held a meeting and asked people who would like to be involved if they'd like to co-sign on this letter. Sent it out to the organization, and we had, I think, 46 people who signed the letter. So it wasn't everybody. It wasn't just putting everybody's name on the list. It was everybody that was interested in having a voice against this.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Do you want me to share the letter, or you've seen it already?
I think that we all read it, and it will be part of the record.
Okay,
Already.
thank you.
So thank you, and you obviously have all read it. It makes very good points. Any discussion on the board? The staff had some points they wish to make, and I would like to point out that it's missing some things, but Kevin, you probably already know this. You need a land surveyor's stamp. We don't have that yet.
I'm sorry, what did you need?
Land surveyor's stamp? Not
Madam Chair, I
there.
think that's the other application.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the, I think you need an impact statement.
That came up in the staff report today. That was the first we had heard of it, and that's something we could certainly submit.
Okay. So there'll be that before we can take any action on it. I guess it's the first time I've really dealt, or second time in a way, that I've dealt with commercial accommodations. I was kind of startled that there's no density limit at all. It's really just limited by the size of the lot, the coverage that you're allowed, and the height of the buildings. Is that right?
There is a density limitation. So in the B3 zoning district, the lot shall not contain less than 15,000 square feet plus an additional 1,500 square feet for each guest unit over 5. Here we have 137,200 square feet in the B3 district, which allows for 137 guest units. And in the RB district, for commercial accommodations, lawfully operating as of August 26, 1983, which this was, for the first 40,000 square feet, there may be 5 guest units. For the remaining lot area in the RB district, which is in this case 1,457 square feet, there may be 1 additional guest unit per 4,000 square feet, which allows for actually up to 195 guest units. So we could, per the bylaw, have up to 332 guest units based on the size of this lot. But we're not asking for that.
No, you're not, but still, it's a lot.
And there was some reference to this being non-conforming. Commercial accommodations is a special permit use. It's not a non-conforming use. That's a distinction.
Well-
do have a reference to that, actually.
Well, while you find that, I think, would the staff like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, we did identify the coastal pond overlay district issue, and it sounds like the applicant's going to be addressing that. There was some discussion about stormwater management and landscaping. It sounds like that has all been taken care of through conservation. And the only other item that we noted was the site plan itself and the lighting. So I was just looking at the architecturals, and I'm just curious if perhaps there's a location for the lighting that can be pointed out to the board as to where exactly that might be. I'm not seeing it, at least on the rear elevations. I mean, I recognize the fact that the lighting plan indicates, you know, the extent for which the light will shine. I guess the question is, you know, when you look at the rear of the building, where exactly are those lights to be located, and is there a way to shield them from shining outwardly? That's something you want to tackle.
Again, I can speak to that. Greg Cerny and Rescom Architectural. So the lighting plan that shows the locations, really addressing the first floor level. At most of the entry doors, there'll be lighting. So if you look at the first, is there a pointer? Yeah. So on the first floor elevation, there'll be lights between the door and the window. And again, just for the record, we picked very low lumen lights. With dark sky, as it was noted earlier, it's the cone, but it's usually the sharpness that catches your eye. This is gonna be a very dull light that just lights the walking surface. Again, that was purposely chosen as a 9 lumens. On the second floor, we're probably gonna have one on opposite end of the building so that, you know, they're not two next to each other. And again, it'd be one on this side and one on that side.
And that's recessed.
And that's, yeah, that's correct. That's pushed in over the canopy. So this is all like covered deck. So that's also gonna help shield it.
Are these dusk to dawn to be left on all night for safety because it's a commercial property?
We actually haven't discussed that with the hotel, but we can find that out.
Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to not speak from your seat. I'm sorry, I can see you've got a problem with mobility, but still, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any requirements from being on overnight, and, you know, there'd be a light switch inside for the guest to use.
But they could inadvertently be left on. Was any consideration given to using cone lights so that the light would definitely be directed down rather than slightly down and out?
We could look at that as well. Again, those have a tendency to be a little brighter. And that's the reason you chose the type you chose. Because it's more, you can get a better dull light. They just don't make recessed. Everything today is LED, and they're very sharp. So by going with low lumens, you just wouldn't be able to get a very low lumens light in the ceiling. And that was our concern, and that's why we chose this style.
Well, I would like to comment again on the landscaping plan. It's really, it's such an imposition on the neighborhood. The buildings are high, you've put them up high, so that the lights are going to be high. The planting that you've got, there's very, very little of it, and they're very close to the pond, so that they're going to be a real presence there on what is actually quite a small pond. The distance across it isn't very great. So I wondered if before, this will be continued anyway, if before you could just work on that landscape plan and see if you could be more responsive to the neighbors' concerns about the change in their neighborhood. As far as the bylaw is concerned, you're well within your right, but the landscape plan needs to show more sensitivity to the rest of the people who are occupying all of that space there.
Ms. Harris, I just want to note, we didn't receive the abutter letter until this morning, so.
Oh, really? Aha. Good, then you'll be reacting to a lot of it.
You know, I had seen 1 or 2 letters come into the zoning board, but the mass signed abutter letter I received for the first time today.
Okay, then. So do we continue?
Yep. But because it's a site plan review, we just say we'll continue it to the next meeting.
So if there's no
We'll take it
more
up.
you'd like to bring to their attention before they come back, you want to come forward?
Hi, my name is Pat Cohane. I live at 7 Tonsett Road, which is in the association. And I have 2 questions. One about fire pits. I had seen on some, there were going to be fire pits. No, there will not be fire pits out on them. Okay. The other question I have is, are the occupants of these units, are they going to have access to the pond by way of kayaks or rowboats? Are they going to be able to bring kayaks with them and put them on the pond? Right now, the pond is fairly quiet. On occasion, we will get a kayak or 2. In our neighborhood, we have little kids who go and play up there at the bridge that crosses over the pond. And I wouldn't want to see a whole lot of kayaks or rowboats or other things.
Do you have a response for that now, or you'll look into it?
Mr. Quinn just indicated that that's not something they offer to their guests. They don't have any access to the pond. They don't make access to the pond. I can't say that someone might not wander out there periodically, but it's not something they're going to be advertising or seeking.
Okay, then.
Can they
Just a moment.
exclude it?
No, it's not a conversation. If you want to come back and speak again, you can, but just ask questions now.
I mean, I can respond to the question. I mean, they're not going to be promoting kayaking.
But can they exclude it?
Sure, yes.
There won't be a path from those to the pond, so that would eliminate that.
John?
I just have a question about your hearing with the Conservation Commission. I don't see any referral in our packet here, other than that they apparently signed off. But one of my questions is, were the abutters notified of that hearing,
Yes.
and did they attend?
There was some abutter presence at the hearing,
Okay.
but, you know, most of their concerns weren't necessarily relative to conservation jurisdiction. And I think they were properly told that those things should be brought up at planning and at zoning. Although there could have certainly been some more discussion relative to plantings at that point.
Were there any requirements of your?
No, as I mentioned, Mr. Drewley, because it's a reduction in impervious surface, there's actually no mitigation planting required. So what's been proposed is just being proposed because it would be attractive and appropriate.
Okay. Thank you.
I think we're ready to continue, so do you think you'd be ready with the landscaping at our next meeting?
When is the next meeting?
Let's see,
October 24th.
the 24th.
We need it a week in advance, correct, Jeff?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should be able to accommodate that.
We're hoping it involves a lot of planting.
Heard.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Okay, moving on.
Is there a vote, Ms. Harris?
We continue.
No, it's just
Site
we
plan, just
continue
keep
it.
going.
Just continued. Right. I have to find my agenda.
Madam Chair, it may just be helpful for the folks in the audience just to explain that it will be continued to the next meeting.
Oh, you're right.
We're medium well right now.
This is continued to what date?
Yes, it'll be continued till the 24th, and you're all welcome to come back then.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just right.
Yeah, yes. Goldilocks here.
Go back. I move that we go back to the original order of the agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to Blue Moon Sea Grill. Site plan review modification to eliminate the outdoor dining deck that was previously approved and to install a first floor pervious patio at 159 Main Street.
Public hearing notice.
Public hearing
Meeting
notice?
notice, I should say.
Coming our way here.
Pam?
Public meeting notice was published on September 22nd, and 25 abutters were notified by regular mail.
Thank you. Mr. Emmett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the board. For your record, I'm Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth attorney, and I represent the applicant Blue Moon Sea Grill, Inc., the principal of which Ed Rishardi and John Rishardi, who are in the back row tonight. The planning board has previously issued a favorable site plan review decision, I think it was in March of this year, for the proposed restaurant at the entrance to Town Hall Square. That would include a outdoor dining deck between the Town Hall Square and the building. We're before you seeking a modification of that decision to allow us to construct a patio for outside dining instead of the structure, the wood deck that was previously proposed. The proposed patio would be in the same area on this plan between the building and Town Hall. You'll recall that there's a stone wall shown on this plan that runs along the boundary, is the boundary of the town's property. The advantages to Blue Moon Sea Grill of this change is that the patio is not a structure. The only new structure would be a small handicap ramp and entry stoop that are indicated on the plan here. Because there would be very little additional structure, the lot coverage will not reach 60%, and therefore a special permit is not required from the Zoning Board of Appeals for a waiver of parking. In addition, the lot coverage by structure will not reach 70% either, of course, and that eliminates the need for a special permit from the Planning Board, which was granted, to allow lot coverage over 70. But with this change, the lot coverage will be less than 60%. And we've already been to the Historical Commission last week. They approved this modification. There were comments made by the Historical Commission members that they actually preferred the proposed patio. I'll show you, if I can get to it, the architect's drawings.
It's on the same. Just scroll down.
Thank you. Easy. The patio is actually 1.5 feet lower than the deck would have been. The deck would have been at the first floor level of the restaurant, up 1.5 feet from Town Hall Square. The patio will be at the level of Town Hall Square and also at the same level as a sidewalk leading, the existing sidewalk that leads from Town Hall Square onto the property, which is in this location. And so it does have a lower profile and eliminates the structural element that was about 1.5 feet of wood that ran along underneath the deck. So the Historical Commission actually prefers this. Other than having a patio instead of a deck, the site plan review decision that you previously issued would not be changed. The circumstances have not changed. There were some questions that the planning staff put forth today, just asking if there were going to be any changes. The previous decision provided that the restaurant would monitor employee parking and implement policies to reduce parking downtown. That same language should apply. Perfectly fine. We're not asking for a modification of that. But I can tell you that we now have in place executed parking agreements with the Falmouth Historical Society and St. Barnabas's Church. And between those two, there's more parking that this restaurant will have a right to, and these are 5-year-long agreements, than the staff that they'll have. So in good faith, they put that together, working towards a decision of the Board of Appeals earlier this year. In addition, you'll recall that there'll be extensive landscaping proposed to really improve the corner of Town Hall Square where this restaurant will be. And Horiuchi Celine Landscape Architects prepared a rendering that we were able to show you earlier this year. That is being revised simply because there's now the sidewalk that exists now that runs to the property will be able to remain and go on to the patio. That was eliminated in the previous plan. And so there will be some changes to the plan, but the idea, the obligation to do that landscape improvement is also fine. The language of the previous decision can stand on that. We do have to go to the select board to get a license to do any work on the town property. So there's no change at all proposed there. On the new plan, we did take advantage of this application to ask for some increased seating. The plans show 137 seats. We may end up with a few seats less than that. At some point, the final occupancy figures will be determined in connection with any building permits. And the 147 is the number of occupants that the architect has determined are allowed in the spaces where there would be the seating. So that provides 10 staff, wait staff and bar people, which should be sufficient. That doesn't count the kitchen staff, because the kitchen is not part of the area that's been analyzed for the occupancy where seating will be. Staff raised the question of access to the property for trash removal. And so I'll remind you that the proposal has been to have the trash collected the same way the trash has been collected for this property for the last 42 years or more. We previously submitted correspondence from the Diane Salter, who owned the building, and who confirmed that the trash has been picked up by trucks coming off of Main Street through the 131 Main Street property, which is La Civetta restaurant, to access the rear of the buildings on Main Street. You have in your file from the previous process correspondence from Attorney Ed Kirk, who represents that restaurant, who has offered and reoffered in connection with this modification request a limited license, a license to have access only for trash collection. But that limitation is also in the agreement from the owner of the property in between. That's McDonald, who has said he would agreed in writing to grant a license for access for trash removal. That license has not been signed. Attorney Kirk's offer of a license was in response to a proposed document that we prepared. We have not agreed on the terms of that license. We have not agreed as to whether the license is necessary, because where there's been 40-some years of this use, there may be prescriptive rights. Mr. Kirk has rejected that argument. So that's an open question. But it is not for the planning board to decide what the easement rights are. It can be for the planning board to decide where trash collection can be picked up and where. So we are confident that we will work things out for trash collection in the rear. However, if we're not able to do that, we have other arrangements that are quite acceptable, it should be. The lease of the restaurant property, that 159 Main Street, was modified earlier this year, in June, I believe it was, to allow the restaurant to share the dumpster that's at Timber Restaurant, actually between my law office building and Timber. A very short walk down Town Hall Square. And it's quite feasible at the end of the day for the trash accumulated to be simply taken to the dumpster. That here, that dumpster would need to be emptied more frequently. Question?
Didn't we resolve all the trash issues when we permitted the deck and the rest of the change there? I think we went over that quite a bit.
Well, we
it's coming
did,
up
but
now.
the decision that was issued contains an error. The decision reads as if there is a license in place and specifically says if the terms of that change, then the planning board has to be consulted. Now, that was an error, and I just point out that we didn't see the proposed decision until it was presented at the meeting of the night, had no opportunity to offer a correction to that. So we don't have a license in place. We think we have the right to have the trash collected in that manner. We think that an amicable arrangement will be made. But if it's necessary, we would deal with trash by simply sharing the existing dumpster that's so close. In all the years that trash has been collected from that dumpster, many at Timber, and before there was a Timber, I've never seen the trash truck come empty that, because they do it very early in the morning. And they would and they also only need to do it once a week at the present time. So it would be collected more frequently early in the morning, and it won't have any impact on anybody. The transporting of trash late in the evening won't impact anybody. So it's a good solution, and I would like it if the planning board would include in its modification the authorization for that alternative, even though we are still hopeful that the trash can be stored and picked up right behind the restaurant. I think that I have covered the issues, all the issues that were in the staff's report. There was one issue that's, you actually mentioned earlier, Charlotte, that the drawing, the plan, here, is stamped by Mike Borselli, who is a
Right.
professional engineer, not the surveyor. But you'll notice, if you look very carefully, at note 11, he says that the property lines and existing conditions are based on the plan prepared by RAS Associates dated July 29, 2022. RAS Associates, Steve Cartwright, is a registered land surveyor. He prepared the plan.
Can you
All of-
cover a stamp with a note like that?
Excellent question. I do not know.
Excuse me.
I wonder if a note takes the place of a stamp.
Well, our problem is that Cartwright is not in Falmouth, and for various reasons, it made sense for us to engage Borselli to do this work. He'll be involved in the project, and getting Cartwright's stamp, while we probably can do it, seemed unnecessary. And the planning, the engineering department, as you know in their referral, raised the question, but then left it to the planning board to decide if the plan is acceptable. And inasmuch as this is a modification of an existing site plan review decision and a modification of the plan, that all of the property lines are determined by a registered land surveyor as referenced on this plan, I would hope that you would agree that that's acceptable.
We have time to think that through.
I will simply tell you it would help the applicant considerably. And we know what the lines are, and they're identical on this plan as on the plan you've already received and approved. And again, this is a modification of that
There
decision.
seem to be a couple of other little hanging issues, just little technical things. Confirmed right to restrict access, needs a street opening permit.
Well, those are all issues that were previously dealt with by the, in the previous decision. We know we need a curb cut opening permit to make the changes at the street. All we're asking for is that instead of a deck,
Right.
be allowed to have a
It was
patio.
surprising to see you back here after all the time we spent getting the permit done before, that you would now reopen the question. Seems, self-inflicted.
Well, I'm sure you can appreciate that this modification eliminates the need for special permits, both of
Right.
which are under appeal in the courts. And that this process will probably, by doing it this way, there will be savings of many tens of thousands of dollars, and we'll get this restaurant open, we hope, a year or two earlier than it otherwise might be.
That would be a good thing. Are there any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Bob?
Currently, there's concrete there now.
Well, some of it is concrete, some
Okay.
of it, and at one point, I imagine it probably was all concrete, but it's
Okay.
not
And that's
today.
all going to be jackhammered up so that it is going to be soil underneath.
I don't know if that was the plan, but that could be done.
Because, we're talking about a pervious surface, and if you have a pervious surface that then hits something solid, that, it could weep out. Because when you build a stone wall or something, you always have weep holes at the bottom, where this won't have any weep holes.
Sure.
to
What's
go out.
clearly the case is that by putting soil on top of the existing surface, we're going to be increasing we won't be increasing the water. We're going to simply be increasing what it can percolate through.
Right.
But I think that, so I'm not sure there's any need to break up the pavement, but I don't think that anybody would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm just, because it doesn't look like it's that deep, you know, and a frost line is 4 feet.
No, it's not that, it's actually not that much fill.
Okay, well, that's my question.
It's hard to tell because there aren't any details to the plan.
Yeah.
Can we get some details to show what's actually going to get built there if this gets approved?
Well, the answer is that, of course, you can get details, but we are showing the concrete blocks that would be used at the south end of the patio to hold the dirt. The dirt would be placed on the existing surface.
I can picture that too, but I'd like to see some kind of a drawing that shows what you're asking us to approve.
I guess I think that this
Even
cross-section...
the handicap ramp doesn't have any detail to it. It just shows a picture of a ramp.
Well, the building department will have to approve handicap ramp.
I understand that.
I don't think there were any more details for the much longer ramp and
Is that like
and
a,
deck
is that like a
that
no?
was approved previously.
Is that a no? Don't get plans? Or we're not, we shouldn't have plans?
Of course, we want to work with the planning board and work with the town and get this project underway.
I'm just asking a question, Mr. Alman.
It's up to you. If there
no.
was a requirement to have more at this stage, and it's a requirement of the planning board, then we will do it. If it's up to us, I guess I would say, it's not that we can't do it, but I would say, no. Why would we do it now for when we weren't asked to do it previously, and we will have to
I
satisfy the
think
building
John's
department?
point is it's different materials, and we don't have any detail on the new materials. Is that your point, John?
Well, I can show you a picture of the proposed patio surface, which will be supposed to be Nantucket blocks.
I just want to, my understanding is you don't need a building permit for a patio.
Yes, but we do need a building permit for
The handicap ramp, but you
Yes,
need a
and we
site
do need
plan
a
for us
lic-
for the patio, but they don't check the pavers, you can change them if you want, right?
They're
Well,
gonna
we
do
have a
something for the retaining
requirement to
wall.
install pavers that are pervious as determined by the
Okay.
building commissioner, whom we've already talked to about this.
All right, because I tell my clients that you don't, a patio doesn't need a building permit. I thought it didn't.
We will need a building permit for improvements to the interior, for the new doorway and the exterior,
Right.
for the ramp and the
Yes,
stoop.
And the retaining wall.
and the retaining wall.
No, that is not there is no wall there that requires a
So I'm correct.
building permit.
Yeah.
Based on the conversations we've had with the building commissioner specifically to address that question, the walls are both less than 4 feet high and consist of simply 2 levels of 18-inch high concrete blocks. That is 36 inches offset and another 36 inches. There isn't a lot to hold back, but we have addressed that issue. That is not a structure, doesn't require a special permit.
Okay, down here, Pat?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because you refer, and you've done it again, as to the pervious surface of the patio. From the drawing, and that's all I have to look at, is it looks like tiles.
May I show you a picture of what we're
I'd
proposing?
love to see, yes, what it is.
Must look good. The Historical Commission approved it.
That's not going to be it. Let's see if I can do it. Bingo. So, and I even think I can increase the size of this. Maybe not.
Click, click, click.
Always bring along my technical assistant.
Yeah.
So, the space between the pavers will be pervious, and the building commissioner will consider this to be pervious. Now, I would point out that pervious or not, it's still not structure, and the allowed structure percentage is 90% in the Business 1 district. We don't have a zoning problem with coverage by the
Structure and paving.
pavers.
So the reason it's called pervious is because of the spaces between,
Yes, the water will go between the spaces and the building. We've had many discussions with the building commissioner about this. If this were not the case, we would do something else that would make it pervious, including different kind of pervious materials.
that's why I was asking, Bob, because there are some that allow some percolation, but I didn't know what you were planning.
Yes, there are, all the maintenance of those systems is an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in between where one would have grout or something similar.
Well, there's even grout that is pervious and can be used, but the other choice, of course, I mean, this will be
Sand.
on a pervious surface, and the material between the stones will be pervious. But this is a building commissioner issue, because the zoning bylaw specifically requires that the building commissioner determine where a pervious surface is required. So we have no problem. It will be a pervious surface as defined.
So there's drainage in between these stones.
That's correct. And remember, it's not as if we are taking a location where this patio will be that is presently lawn or soil. It's all hard packed. It's either is or was concrete. About 2/3 of it is existing concrete, and the rest is just the remaining gravel.
Staff, is there anything you want to contribute?
I would recommend that you require a detail for the pavers as well as the concrete block for your retaining wall. Just my recommendation. Bob, you mentioned the landscaping plans being currently amended. Do you feel like that will be in place 1 week prior to the next hearing?
Well,
Do you have
the
an idea of
landscaping plan isn't for this property.
That's
The
going on
landscape
town
plan is for
property.
the town's property and has to be approved by the,
So there'll be no landscaping on the 159 Main Street
well,
property?
other than what, we have a very little bit of, we have an area here where there would be plantings between it's an area that really won't be seen. It's below the town's wall, and it's going to be below the patio. What I'd like to say is that the conditions of your site plan review decision previously issued are all fine. They didn't require us to do a landscaping plan other than the reference in it about going to the selectmen's board.
So,
And I believe that the detail on these plans is the equivalent of the detail that was on the previously approved plans. And as far as I can file the photograph I've just submitted and the name of the material we're proposing to use.
So, I don't remember if the previous site plan review decision referenced a landscaping plan by title.
It did not. I have it
There
here.
wasn't any.
There was,
There wasn't any
There
landscape.
wasn't a
but
landscaping
there was a
plan.
landscaping plan submitted
Well,
with the
there was
application.
there was a rendering prepared. It was not a detailed plan. It was a rendering. It was very attractive, prepared by Horiuchi and Celine. That was submitted.
But the plantings that were in the rendering would be all on the town land. Bob, is there a fence proposed between, separating the town land from the?
There is presently a chain
Chain
link
link
fence.
fence. Are you
in
taking that down?
significant disrepair that's very unattractive. With the patio will come right up to the wall, and there will be a railing. There is the type of railing, cable railings with, I think it's wood posts with a metal cap on top. It's going to be attractive.
Right, so it'll look a lot better. And the town sidewalk that goes right toward it, there'll be no step down there at the same level?
No, that will have to be filled in, and it will be graded. It won't take much adjustment, but the goal is to have it meet the patio. That will have to be approved by the select board. That will
Right.
be work on the town property.
Well, I just wanted to picture what your concept was. It will look a lot better. So I think we're all done.
It would be nice if we had a plan, we could have seen all this.
Well, but
And then
what
we
we're
could
talking
refer-
about isn't
we-
on their land.
We could refer to the plan in our decision.
I think what's my larger part was that landscaping plans are a requirement of site plan review. So if the applicant wishes to waive that requirement, they need to do so in a letter formally requesting that, or perhaps provide some level of detail about the landscaping that's currently proposed. But to clean up the application, I would suggest one of those two approaches.
Let me just say that I have, as you do, the decision that was issued on March 6th of 2023. The only plans that are referred to by name in this plan are the same plans that you have, a plan of the surveyor and a plan from the architect. And the second from last condition simply says the applicant shall seek approval from the select board for the proposed landscaping located on town property, and shall include the necessary details, types of planting, bench and bike rack materials, future maintenance, etc., within that request. That's what the planning board did in site plan review on these issues. I would certainly not object to a condition in this modification that would require a copy of our application and plans to the select board to be submitted to the planning staff for their comments, which they can then refer to the select board. And we can also be sure that the DPW is going to carefully review whatever work is proposed to be done on the town property.
And we can also assume we'll be carrying forward any other conditions that continue to pertain despite this change.
Yes.
Yes.
And
a
with the
condition on the
exception,
licensing.
I would like it if the board would clean up, if you will, the language about the Daybon license,
Licensing.
which in fact doesn't exist. Now, I know you're not going to be done with this tonight because you're going to want to have a revised decision, I presume. All of the points I've made tonight in response to the staff's recommendation are covered. There's no new information, but they're covered in a correspondence I've prepared and sent to the town planning department this afternoon. I have copies of that for you if you'd like me to submit it, but as I said, we have submitted it to the town with the same comments I've given you tonight.
They all have copies.
We do.
They have
Yep.
I think that
ahead of me.
we're ready.
Charlotte? I also agree with Bob, and I would like to see as part of the decision, because of the shallowness and the claim of perviousness, I would like to see the concrete at the very least, broken up that's there, because it is shallow. And when we have freezing conditions, that lovely patio that they're proposing with the freezing and thawing is going to buckle even more readily if the concrete is left there underneath, I think.
The town's concrete, you think? Oh, the
No, no, no.
underlying concrete?
The underlaying concrete here, because I think, didn't you say it was about 2/3 the length of it that there's concrete,
Yeah,
Bob?
but it's quite a distance down, it's not
It's
in the
about
same
right.
height.
Look,
It goes all the way to the door
See?
on
right,
the side of the building now.
and that's
the
very
only place that's
shallow there.
close.
That's why I would at least, very least, break it up so that you have the possibility for the rainwater to percolate through. Because I would be concerned with the freezing thawing.
Yeah,
effect.
I'm sure that if the planning board thought it was appropriate to put a condition that existing pavement be broken up, that's fine. I'd point out that we already have approval for a deck
Yeah.
where all the water would go through between the piece of wood onto that surface, and that condition was not in the previous
Because
decision.
you didn't have the fill under it. I like this plan better. I think it's aesthetically better.
Thank you.
I think the planning board is ready to ask for a positive motion at our next meeting on the 24th with the conditions that are already there. The new condition about being sure that the licensing is complete or can be completed administratively, so they're not coming back about it, but it will be done. And breaking up the underlying surface where it's near the new surface is going to be.
Are you looking for details just for the applicants, are you gonna be looking for details of the retaining wall and the pavers themselves?
I don't believe so, no. No. Just looking for those conditions.
All right.
That's,
What was the answer to Jed's question?
no, we're not looking for anything further.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank
And it
you.
will look good. Thank you all. Okay, now, we have something that we're going to need quite a bit of explanation on. Also a public hearing. We open
You want me to read something?
this.
Okay,
Right here.
oh, this is what he wants me to read.
Oh, okay.
So this is petitioner zoning article.
Yeah. So
So you
the matter that we're going to be hearing is on a petitioner zoning article for the November 2023 annual town meeting, and the article is,
In accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, and Section 1.1D of the Falmouth zoning bylaw, the Falmouth Planning Board shall conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, October 10, 2023, at 6:30 PM at the Falmouth Town Hall, 59 Town Hall Square, Falmouth, Massachusetts, 02540, on the zoning articles proposed for the warrant at the annual town meeting to be held November 13th, 2023. And you want me to, just that part you wanted me to read, correct?
If you would like to read into the record the petitioner's article, you certainly can, or you can allow the applicant.
I think we'll let the
I
applicant do
think,
that.
yeah.
Great, thank you. For the record, Kevin Clower. I am here tonight presenting the petition article submitted by Mike Duffany, proposing a change to 247.7B6. Though this petition article is applicable to the Water Resource Protection District as a whole, it is really submitted with regard to the proposed YMCA location on Brick Kiln. I'm joined tonight by Stacy Pugh, who's the Executive Director for the YMCA, Stuart Clark, engineer with Green Seal, Joel Kubik is here, as well as other members of the committee with the Y, which is Dave Peterson, Alyssa Hike Harris, Dennis Ducharme. I might probably miss someone, I'm sorry. But I think I hit most of it there. Mike Duffany assures me that he's watching at home, so we'll find out tomorrow. The proposed amendment is really designed to provide the special permit granting authority, in this case, the zoning board, with flexibility and some level of discretion. Specifically, it's the discretion to allow, by special permit, discharge of more than 7.5 gallons per day per 1,000 square feet within the Water Resource Protection District. This would be if the applicant could establish through advanced treatment that the nitrogen loading that would result would be the same or less than would result from a standard Title V system. I think it's important to note that this would not be a blanket approval. It would still be subject to a special permit, still be subject to all standards set forth within the Water Resource Protection District, as well as those set forth in 240-12.1E, which governs all special permits and includes considerations such as the adequacy of the site in terms of size, suitability of the site for the proposed use, and the adequacy of the method of sewage disposal. I understand that there may be some concern regarding other uses that this might apply to. It's worth noting 40Bs, this would not be applicable, well, because 40Bs can disregard zoning bylaws as it is. This is only relative to non-residential use, and any non-residential use would still be limited to those allowed within the Water Resource Protection District, which limits the amount of non-residential uses pretty significantly. A standard Title V system discharges typically 75 milligrams per liter. The proposed system would reduce that to approximately 15 milligrams per liter, which is approximately a quarter of the discharge. That is the exhaustion of my level of knowledge regarding septics. We're going to defer to the engineers for any questions beyond that. But that is the petition article that we've submitted. It is really done with the intent to provide the special permit granting authority with some discretion, given the improvements in technology and what we know now relative to what we knew in 1979 when this language came into the zoning bylaw and has not changed since then. I think that this can be done in a way that doesn't necessarily open up a Pandora's box, but does allow for, again, some discretion if an applicant can establish that what they're proposing is better in terms of effects than what would otherwise be allowed by right.
I think it will take a lot of explanation, because I really don't understand it. Is there
Now we bring the
anyone here
engineers
who-
up.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Stuart Clark with Green Seal Engineering, Environmental, I'm sorry. Basically, the way the bylaw was written, it's written as a hydraulic loading rate. You can put so much water on the ground. But there was, as Kevin says, that was based on standard Title V effluent. That Title V effluent runs between 50 and 100 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. And that is the biggest component that you want to get out of the water in your district. So the way we look at it now is, and the state is on board with this, they want us to use these innovative and alternative technologies that reduce the nitrogen, especially here on the Cape. So we go and look at it as a mass balance. So if you can do 7.5 gallons a 1,000 square feet at 100, and you should be able to do 75 at 10. You know what I mean? You follow my reasoning there? So you're putting the same amount of pollutant, right? It's not based on the amount of water, because the hydraulic, I'm not explaining this well. A hydraulic loading rate, and there's a mass loading rate. A mass is the amount of pollutant that's going into the ground. The hydraulic rate doesn't even talk to that. It doesn't even approach that. But I have, prepared a spreadsheet that shows how we can, an equivalent to, let me approach it like this. The equivalent to your 7.5 gallon per day per 1,000 square feet right now at standard effluent would come out to be about 1.5 milligrams per liter of nitrogen per square foot, right? And if you use one of these innovative technologies, and just using the Y as an example, we'll be at 0.29. We'll be almost 4 times less loading rate of the pollutant than the water. So that's why Kevin thought it would be a good idea to give discretion to the board, because I don't think that bylaw in 79 was written correctly. I understand the intent, and I applaud that. But you have to really look at how much pollutant is going into the ground instead of how much just water you're putting in the ground. Does that make any sense?
We can't wait for it to make sense to me. That would be too long. We have heard before, when this has come up about alternative systems, that they don't actually work well. And I wondered, John, you were the one, what's your reaction to all this?
Well, depends, excuse me, depends on what system that they're going to use for denitrification. Do you have a proposed system?
We are proposing the nitro system. We've presented that to the Board of Health. They are in favor of that system, and that I have some results here if the board would like to see them. They've done pilot testing on this system, and at a standard effluent of 105 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, they're reducing it to 6 milligrams per liter. So they're getting 6% of the 100. So they're taking out 90 some odd percent of the nitrogen, which is very
So
good.
I understand what he's saying. It's a great system. The problem that we have probably as a board, and maybe Scott can help us with this, is that these systems are not approved by the state yet. They have to go through, what,
They're in
10 years of testing
Yeah, they're in
and
the
monitoring,
pilot phase,
and
right.
then they have to be placed in the field, and up to 50 systems somewhere in Massachusetts, and they get monitored, I think, for 3 years, and after a long period of time, they can be approved by the state. But nitro, nitrex, they're getting really good results, but they're not approved yet. They haven't been around long enough to be approved.
So we're updating to something that's not
Well,
completely tested yet.
That's what the proposal is.
Uh-huh.
And he said that the Board of Health is in favor of this system, but we have the health agent here. We should
Right.
maybe ask him what he thinks.
Yeah, I think this is going to go on
I just don't know how to
testimonials.
I don't know how to overcome that hurdle.
Yeah.
If it is a hurdle.
Hello, everybody. This is the first time I've been to the planning board.
Wow.
Welcome.
So the Nitro has been the best operating system. It's pretty
Could you please
close.
state your name?
Scott McGann, health
thank
agent,
you.
sorry. It's not far off from getting, I believe, getting general use approval. There's 60, last time I checked, roughly 65 of them in the ground. Good example, College Light Opera has one. They're running really well. They're not general use approved yet, correct. They do remove about 90%. I think when you look at the bylaw, the one thing you could say is give it a limit. So you could take the bylaw that Kevin wrote, and when it says enhanced nitrogen removal system, that means a lot of different things, and it may not mean what you want it to mean. So put a number on it. You've done that previously on the accessory apartment bylaw. You've stated on your accessory apartment bylaw 12 milligrams per liter. And I believe not too far in the distant future, nitro would be approved for something around 11. That's about where their target is. They're running in the 5 or 6 milligrams per liter. That is true. We don't know how long. It's a wood chip. It's a really cool system. It uses limestone and a 2-compartment septic tank, basically, all right, with no top on it, cut in the middle, limestone, wood chips. Yeah, the wood chips may not last forever, and you may have to replenish it, and I don't think they know exactly how long. But I think you could easily solve that by just putting a number. The good news, everybody knows about the new watershed permit. One thing that watershed permit is going to do is the big companies out there like Microfast and Singulair and Amphidrome know what the rules are now, and I think their technologies will get better as we start literally on the Cape putting thousands of these D-Night systems in to help meet that watershed permit. So I think the world of D-Night systems from 1995 to 2023 it's for drinking water. It doesn't matter if it gets 19, 20. It's just to take some of the nitrogen out. But we're trying to use this to solve our salt pond problem, that those technologies are just going to get better with time. Right now, the nitro is in Nitrex, but nitro's what we see going in is done really, really well. So you could write that bylaw, and after the enhanced nitrogen removal, say, capable of meeting 12 milligrams per liter, and let the board, now, then you have something that is tangible, because those are monitored and sampled, and the results are what they are. So I can pull up through the county website all the results from every D-Night system, nitrogen removing system that is in the town from day one. And so you can look at what they're capable of meeting. And so I think you can do it. Just saying enhanced nitrogen removal might mean something you throw in the septic tank that bubbles air. It might not be, like, what does that mean? The one that they're proposing is the one that seems to be operating the best. So I don't know if I made it easier on you or harder on you on that one.
We'll see. John?
Scott, when the Board of Health discussed this, and Nitrex or Nitro, whatever was proposed, did your board discuss a number instead of a system, or both?
I think we're looking at 12 at the board.
And what would happen if we made, this became a bylaw?
Yeah.
This building got built, and the system got installed, and it came in at 18 or 19?
Well, there's already language in
Did
our
they make
local.
adjustments to it?
Well, there's language that thou shall, meet.
Okay.
12, whatever the number happens to be. Older ones are 19. Yeah, the board could have its replacement. If there's a better mousetrap in 8 years and Nitro's come to find out that they're getting 25 over time, and there's, Mr. Drewley and, Mr. Fox get together and they invent the greatest denitrifying septic system, and it runs at 3, that might be the future, and they may have to. So, yeah, they're responsible for meeting that level of nitrogen. So if you were comfortable with using concentration, you could just say, okay, a system capable of meeting a certain amount of nitrogen, such as 12, and that protects you from someone throwing in a denite system that's only taking out 25%, and you're way off from what you were originally doing. So that was just,
Okay.
so yeah, there's mechanisms in there for having to meet it. So the board right now could take look at the data and say, well, these 5 places are running 5 times what they should be. We need to have them in front of the board and their operator to discuss. And one of the local regulations that we're going to have a public hearing on Monday is to start licensing the operators at the town level as a proposal, so that we have more control over what the operators are doing. Especially with homeowners, you put one of these in, you think you're doing the right thing, but are the filters being changed, the sampling being done, are they doing? So the board's going towards more control and oversight on the denites, because if.
Of the ongoing operation of the denaturing.
Yeah, and going forward, so anything getting put in, because we're literally, with the watershed permits are going to not just be sewer, it's going to be a combination of sewering and in these IA systems, and it's going to be quite a few be put in. I would say thousands would have to get put in addition. So, if they're running at 30, what are we doing? If they're running at 5, now we're talking, or 8, or 9, or 10. So.
All right, thank you.
You're throwing numbers around back and forth,
Sorry.
30s and I think parts per
Okay, so-
million at the same time. And when you're saying 30, you mean 30%?
Oh, sorry.
And you mean 9, you mean
I
9 parts
I
per
mean
million?
concentration. So
I'm just having a hard time
the problem with
following
denite
that.
systems is this. In 1995, DEP, when they did the test, coming out of everybody's pipe was roughly on an average of 38 milligrams per liter. They said if you took out half,
Okay, 38 milligrams per liter, is that also 30%?
no,
No,
not
it's
about
70%.
30, they were talking about 30, they were talking early on, I'm gonna get confused, I'm trying not to, but I'm probably gonna confuse everybody, was where 19 came from. Everybody's heard of 19, right? For years, we used 19 milligrams per liter, was 50% less than what they thought was coming out of the pipe. Coming out of the house really is like 60, 70. So when these systems run 30, 50% of 60 is 30, when they're actually running at 30, we're not taking out enough nitrogen. Nitro can go from the 60 or 70 milligrams per liter, what an average home comes out, and get it down below 10 milligrams per liter.
So you're not using percentage, you're using milligrams per
I'm
liter.
using concentration.
Okay, now I understand.
Okay, sorry.
Charlotte? Scott, is this figured on, as we are now, all the new builds and replacements of things on low flow? Low flow toilets, low flow shower heads?
Well, our board's approvals usually it includes low flow as part of the approval, but, we're assuming, we know now better that it's coming out at a concentration way higher than what we thought it was.
That was my point. that I was trying
And that's
to
why a
make.
lot of these technologies are doing what we asked them to do in 1998, was go from 38 to 19, 38 milligrams per liter to 19 milligrams, which would be half. And they take out about half the nitrogen. I would say, engineers in there, that's about what they're getting, is about half. But half of 70 isn't where we want them to be. And now the newer technologies like the nitro are going from that 70 milligrams per liter down under 10. And I think over time, even those other systems will become better because of competition, right? So when we get if we go for a watershed permit, and we say these houses in this area need to be put in D-nights, we have to have an assumption of what that concentration coming out would be. And if it's all over the place, you know, you're gonna have to put twice as many denitrifying septic systems at 20 milligrams per liter than you would have to at 10, because you're trying to take out, X amount of nitrogen. So I'm just saying, what Kevin had wrote, because what's there now is 300 gallons per acre? Yeah, and so that's not a lot. I mean, if it was a well, it would be allowed 440 per acre, and with D-nite would be 660 per acre, gallons per day. So the bylaw now for Long Pond water, I call that the Long Pond watershed map, is what you're talking about, is pretty strict now at 300 gallons. That 7.5 per thousand is roughly about 300 gallons right per acre.
So if we would write in something like this, 12. I've always been told that bear with me on this, that you cannot recommend specifically a particular system. You can say you've just got to put something in. And what you're saying is right now, only the nitro and the nitrix, I believe, can meet the standard that you were recommending that we write in.
Well, I think if you talk to different people, different operators, they will tell you that other systems can get there. That's not what the data shows, but some of these are 10, 15 years old. And I think there'll be more technologies, but yeah, you're not picking the technology, you're basically making the technology get better to meet your standards.
Yeah, so if a bylaw like this is put in, won't the AG throw it out?
Well, you already have it. You have it with your accessory apartment bylaw is 12.
We do it 12. Oh.
Am I wrong?
We've got in the accessory apartment bylaw a restriction on the number of bedrooms per square footage.
Yeah, but in our regulation, it says all accessory apartments have to be 12. So it's in our Falmouth septic regs for your
We say it
accessory
has to go
apartment.
to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they say,
Essentially.
yeah.
Could we
Well, I don't
just-
know whether, Jed had sent me an email, and I said, well, you say enhanced nitrogen removal, let's maybe closely and tightly define it better by putting a standard meeting on it. But we already have in our local regs that when other boards, such as yourself, have a requirement, we're looking for 12 now.
Okay.
So I guess if you didn't put it in and they came to the board, we would be asking for the 12 anyway. So I guess that could be another way to look at it.
Couldn't you simplify the entire conversation? What this is doing, really, is just giving the permit granting authority the flexibility so long as it's less.
Yep.
You don't have to get into any of the numbers. I mean, that's really what it's doing, and it could have said that in simple English. It would make it easier for town meeting, it would make it easier for us, it'll make it easier for everyone who's trying to understand it. If you're going to, you can have the flexibility to make it less. That's what you can do, and leave out the numbers.
Yeah.
Much easier.
That was just my suggestion, was don't put in something that doesn't work well. That was kind of where I was trying to go with that, but my 2 cents on it.
If I may, Madam Chair, I think Scott was mentioning the fact that, there's a lot of different types of advanced treatment systems. So you may be getting something that you may not want, but to your point, I think perhaps if it says, well, you have to put in something that gets you to the point where you already are restricted, perhaps that does the trick, if you follow that at
There's a
all.
limit that can be enforced, except the people who are going to be thinking about it at the moment have the flexibility, so long as it would be less nitrogen. Because the problem, which we learned before last time we were having to consider this, is really in the enforcement of it. Once you've approved something, you have no idea what it's doing really, or who's taking care of it. So there's a whole other issue over there that this doesn't begin to address. This is just flexibility so it can be less.
Can I just ask a question? Less than what?
It doesn't refer to that number here. Waive this limitation.
I think
This
that if you don't
limitation.
specify a number, it will give a broader.
Ms. Harris, the limitation is 7.5 gallons
Yeah.
per day.
or less.
The problem is you'd still be discharging 7.5 gallons per day. The nitrogen load in that gallon discharge would just be significantly less. So it's, we wouldn't be able to just say that we're discharging less gallons, because what we're doing is discharging the same amount of gallons, but reducing the amount of nitrogen by a margin of 90% or some dramatic number. So I think even as written, it might work if we're still, this is not a blanket approval that would be granted by the special permit granting authority. It would still have to go to the planning board, the health department rather, and the health department's gonna be looking for a standard of 12 milligrams per liter.
Can you just restate that so everyone?
I'm gonna try.
Yeah.
Wait, you said 12, but we were just saying you can do 9.
It isn't there. He's referred to something that isn't there.
What we're asking for is to apply more water, but the same amount of pollutants, period. That's all we're trying to do. It's the same amount of pollutant, but more water. With a, it's weaker, it's a weaker
So
solution.
you're diluting it.
That's all we're asking. Does that make sense?
It may.
It should be fun at town meeting.
I
Yeah.
think you need to work on your wording if you expect to get through town meeting.
Well, that's why we thought giving the zoning board the opportunity to hear this as a special permit, this could all get vetted there at the zoning board. They could get a referral from the Board of Health saying, yes, we like this system, no, we don't think it's gonna make it. So it would just gives them flexibility to make that decision instead of being black and white, yes, no. That's all we're asking.
I think we're all trying to do the same thing, create some flexibility for the special permitting authority. I'm just saying, I think you need to work on your wording.
So
to
I
make
spoke
it
with,
easier to get the approval you're seeking.
So I spoke with Jed today, and as I noted to him, I said, there's no pride of authorship here. I'm happy to modify this however we see fit. This was drafted in about 12 hours before the deadline for town meeting articles, because we realized this could be a really significant issue. It could actually be a game stopper for this project. We have some alternatives, but we don't know if they work, and we won't know if they work until after we go through Cape Cod Commission and planning and zoning and spend many hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars. So opening up an avenue like this where it provides the granting authority with some discretion to say, what you're doing is discharging more water, but the same or less level of pollutant, they can waive that limitation of 7.5 gallons per day. That's really all it's intended to say, and it would still be subject to approval by the Board of Health. None of these things are blanket approvals in and of themselves.
I would suggest we continue this to the next meeting, which is October 24th. Provide staff a little bit more time to educate themselves and to get some answers and to talk to the folks in town about this topic and get a little bit more detail. The issue with doing that, though, is that the warrant book goes to print, I believe, next week, Tuesday. So, what you could do, an option for the board, is to simply have a recommendation that says you will make your recommendation on town meeting floor.
As presented instead of as
Yeah.
printed.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's done all the time.
yeah.
So I think there's more time, we can educate ourselves, bring back some more information about GBD
Does
and
that work for you?
percentages
Absolutely.
and concentrations.
I'd rather that than
And the-
definite postponement.
Yeah.
But on this conversation, the SPGA is the ZBA, not the planning board, correct?
Is that the way you'd like it? Yes, I believe so.
I just, we're throwing letters around, so I
Yeah.
thought I'd.
So typically, the article refers to the special permit granting authority. In this case, the zoning board is the one who grants a special permit for uses within the water resource protection district.
We're all set?
I'd rather come to you guys. I won't tell them.
That's my recommendation.
Gonna follow that recommendation.
So continue to October 24th?
Yep.
Yeah.
And Jed, you and I can talk about some modification to the language in this area.
Absolutely. I just want to remind you that it is a public hearing, so you may want to see if there's public comment.
Oh, sorry. Oh, excuse
There
me.
may or may not be.
Now is the time. If you have some thoughts on this, please come forward, give your name, tell us what you're here for.
You have any idea what we're talking about?
We're prepping ideas for the next meeting.
I'll take it.
Very good.
Then I
Continue the
get to
hearing.
this.
Yep.
Then I have to do
You should make a vote and a motion to continue to the next meeting.
Okay. Motion to continue?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
There we go. Here,
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
thank you. Right.
Wish I could explain it better. It's straight up here.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it just seems pretty simple, but it's hard to explain.
Committee reports.
The numbers were
Paul's
bouncing
not
around a
here.
little
Yeah.
bit.
We have any committee reports? No? Housing? Yeah. No committee report? Okay, planning department report. These are really nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
They're great.
So, on your agenda, you can see that we have two updates. First is the special projects list and
Yep.
the associated timeline. And then after that is the local comprehensive plan. You asked for a potential timeline for that. I can walk through it very briefly, and then obviously open it to questions. So we'll start off with the special projects list. As you can see, there are 12 special projects that we're currently, we'll call it on the stove. I did neglect to include the housing production plan, so we're actually at lucky number 13.
Oh, there's another one.
Yes, I had forgotten about that one. But as you can see, it's busy. Now, some of these projects, for example, number 11 and number 12, those are sort of, they don't really have a timeline because they're so far down the list and they're not, they weren't identified as priorities from the board. If you remember, we talked about the special projects list a year ago, back around this time of year.
Yeah.
So first and foremost is the recodification, the phase 2 effort. That's going to be ongoing for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, that ran off the chart also.
Yeah, and that certainly occupies a lot of our time. As you can see, the Emerald Properties, and if you follow the paper and current events, that has ceased. The Open Space and Recreation Plan, we're hopeful to get funding at town meeting to get that last piece, the ADA transition plan, completed. So we're hoping to contract with an outside firm sometime in January. That would be sort of a light load on our end. Design guidelines, it's one of your top priorities.
Yeah.
But as you can see, that timeline looks out till October of 2024, simply because of the other things that we've got going on.
Right.
And those items include the Shivrix Pond Improvement Project, which of course is an ongoing item. The Edward Marks Building.
But before you rush forward, on the design guidelines, we're not even planning to get to it
Right.
at all until
The year?
this time a year from now.
Yeah, yeah. And the reason for that is recodification, Shivrix Pond, the Ed Marks Building, and then we're taking on two important projects, provided the town meeting approves the funding. In the near term in January, the wayfinding plan for downtown, that
Yeah.
wayfinding signage, as well as the parking management plan. So
Yeah.
we're overseeing consultants and the Cape Cod Commission working on those particular projects.
So those are both with consultants.
Correct. So basically, the point I'm trying to make here is that in January, in a short number of months, we're going to be overseeing and managing anywhere between 5 and 6 projects.
Right.
That's why we put design guidelines sort of on the back end of the stove.
Well, in the meantime, we're just using the Cape Cod Commission
Right.
commercial guidelines.
Correct.
Too bad we can't just change the cover then temporarily or add to that cover. So we have something clear that it's a concern that we have something on it, it's not a blank space.
Yeah. So what we've done is we've posted to the website. What I'd like to be able to do is post it to the permitized applications so that when applicants, apply for site plan review, that document is linked there and they can see the items that, are included in it and that will be reviewed by the board. We're just slowly getting there. But we're trying to spread the word that this design guideline document does apply when you're looking at commercial site plan review.
This is the design document from the Cape Cod Commission. I don't know if the public is familiar with it at all.
They may not be. But yes, the Cape Cod Commission published that document, I want to say in 2018, 2019, somewhere around there, and the board officially adopted it as your design guidelines
Right.
in 2019. And it is listed on our website and available to any member of the public.
So its virtue is, it doesn't say anything really stunning. It just says that we are trying to maintain the character of our region, but what it really adds to it is graphics, so that you can look and see that within that character, there's a lot of variation. It's not so that everything suddenly becomes a Cape Cod of one height or another.
Talks about building heights, massing, lighting, all sorts of different things.
But these are commercial buildings that it covers.
Correct.
That's all we
Not
do.
Well, that's what we
residential.
do.
Essentially what
I
you do.
understand that, but if they're listening and they're hearing design
Yeah, okay.
guidelines,
Oh,
you know,
Oh,
it could be
thinking houses.
housing.
Good
yeah.
point.
I see what you're saying.
So
We
that's
don't
why I
do
bring that up.
residential. Single-family
accessory.
residential, that's not our
Right.
gig.
Well, even if
People
it's
question
not
us all the
awful, we
time
hate
like
it,
that.
we
Well, what
can't
about
say
that house
anything.
down at the end of that road? How could you let that go?
Yeah.
Oh,
We didn't.
Go see ZBA.
I wasn't specific, I just was,
another one that we went by very quickly, Shiverick's Pond also ran off somehow into 2025.
Yeah,
Don't we foresee an end to that project?
we do, yes, yes. So right now, it's in the environmental permitting phase, and so our consultants are working on an approval through the Army Corps of Engineers, I believe. And that's gonna take some time. So it's a Chapter 91 license. Actually, I think that's DEP. Nevertheless, that takes time, and so after they receive that license, then they'll be putting together cost estimates for the actual viewing platform and next kayak launch. That's the next phase. But we also have, in addition to the viewing platform in the fishing area, is the access park. And Paul can tell you more about this, I'm sure you've heard it
Right.
before. But we're also working on that as a separate project, but it's tied into the Shiverick Pond improvement project in its entirety.
Because now the vista pruning has been done long enough that it's growing back in.
Yeah, some of the invasives are growing back in.
Right. So maintenance will become an issue.
Absolutely.
Sorry, you were going
No.
forward.
That's fine. I mean, I've really summarized the reason why we put design guidelines where we did and the,
I don't understand number 11.
sure.
well, I wouldn't talk about number 8, if we
Oh.
can, we done that, we're done with that?
Not
I
yet.
actually was planning on going to the selectmen and complaining that we're not doing anything with the Edward Marks building. I think I should be quiet, because it looks like it's a planning board project now.
Yeah, so planning staff, we support the historical commission and we
Okay.
also staff the,
Okay. So I would look very foolish if I went to them and complained, why isn't
Don't do
anything
that.
happening? Okay.
We would.
I would advise against that.
Should make it into affordable.
I hadn't
housing.
heard that, it's our job now.
Well, planning staff, so that's the
Well-
reason, I mean, obviously, you know.
When you bring it forward, do we look at it?
No, not necessarily, no, but if you wanna spend time in the planning
No,
office, you become
no,
staff.
no.
Yeah.
I just think it's a shame. I drive by it every day.
Yeah.
And they can't believe how bad the Edward Marks building, the sign's been down for months, the grass is growing up to here. No one's doing anything. I was gonna go make a public complaint about it, and it looks like it's a planning board issue.
The maintenance
Sorry.
isn't.
Staff, planning staff issue.
I think staff.
Eddie
Yes.
Marks will be
We'll just call it the
shaking.
department.
He would be, yeah. Well, I'm friends with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
it's all
So
the
it's
weeds
just,
in
it's a
front of the
long
building
process,
that
it
look
goes in
bad.
phases, and they're doing the interior first. So the interior is almost done, and then they're gonna be doing the exterior.
I was just thinking about taking a picture of the front of the building, putting it up during public discussion, and just let it sit there for the 2 minutes so people can see how bad it looks. It's bad.
Well, it's not gonna be that way forever. They're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they
It's
just
just a
recently.
slow process.
They recently just removed all the landscaping around the building to make the exterior improvements better. But because they removed a lot of that stuff, some of the invasive and.
The sign's
you know,
been laying on the ground for a couple months.
It has, yeah.
The
yeah.
weeds are,
And the weeds
This
are
high?
3 feet high.
Yeah, there was a sewer connection issue, so there's a lot going on there, so they will be
we
getting
complained to
to it.
you then.
To either myself or Melinda.
All right. I'm done.
Well, who's responsible for that kind of building maintenance in the meantime? Is that a DPW task?
It is a facilities issue, yes, and Greg Endicott is working really hard on the interior work and overseeing all of that. He's doing a fantastic job. It's incredibly busy over there because they are trying to get human services moved from their current location into there. But the advisory committee is likely going to be asking to do some improvements to the landscaping on the exterior, just to make it not look so poor.
Bad.
No pun intended.
Eleven.
Madam Chair,
Yes, John.
over the last couple of years, town meeting has approved through CPC, 2 funding projects for the Edward Marks Building. And there's been a bid process and there's ongoing work. But the building is really old and really needs, it needs ongoing work. There's just so much wrong with it. And they can use the first floor. Second floor got remodeled at some point, but it can't be used at this time. No elevator, there's no handicap access to
Well,
it.
sort of followed it. One thing, the building has beautiful proportions. It's a very, stately building.
It does, but it just needs a lot of work and it's ongoing. But we've funded 2 projects for it in the last, I think the last 3 years.
Good.
So it's not forgotten.
It is not. And you will see improvements very soon to the exterior. So that completes my summary of the special projects.
Could you explain what the GIZ is after Mr. Cod?
Sure, growth incentive zone.
Aha,
So that is
that's the Cape Cod Commission thing.
correct. And that is the option that the board has to ask the Cape Cod Commission for a special district, if you will,
Yeah,
to allow for projects with a certain size and a certain impact to not have to go to the Cape Cod Commission, but be handled
Right.
locally for review and mitigation.
that didn't even got on the timeline.
Correct. So that got pushed back for a number of reasons. Recodification really is the primary reason.
Yeah,
As you know, we've got in the area of 11 or 12 bylaws that we're going to be looking to bring forward for revisions.
right.
And folks continue to bring up new ideas. So it's kept us very busy, and our consulting team as well as the working group. So it's a big project. So that's the reason. Currently, that's way down on the list, if you will.
Thank you.
As is Davis Straits form-based code. Now, that's a little bit more complicated because of the fact that you have the mixed residential and commercial overlay district, which is, known as Mr. Cod. And there has to be a way to sort of weave them together, because as you know, Mr. Cod covers that area of Davis Straits where the form-based code might live. And so we need to work with our consultant team in the future to figure out how they live together, or if they can at all. Do they need to be separate districts? Can one overlay the other? And how that all works out in the grand scheme of things. So more work to be done there.
We'll learn more about how to do that because of trying to fix Mr. Cod to accommodate the problem we're having now with 545.
Right. So again, down the list, try to clean up some of the ones above it, and then we get to that project.
Okay. So, LCP.
Correct. So based on that, and my background in another life, I put together this timeline for you to consider for the local comprehensive plan. I used to do a lot of community master plan work at my prior organization. And what we would typically do is we would allow for a 2-year process. And primarily for that is, or the primary reason for that is because of the civic engagement component of it. So we would have a number of workshops, rent out a hall in town, use the library, whatever it may be, locations where you can invite the public on a Saturday morning, come down, have coffee, what am I saying, donuts. And, we could serve ice cream. I would eat ice cream in the
Good
morning.
idea.
And we would talk about chapter-specific topics. And so for 2 hours, we would just engage with the public and, we'd do a series of those. Those would inform the final plan, and that would generally take about 2 years because it's a lot, it's a decent amount of work in between. So this timeline, it's a lot of information, but it's broken into essentially 5 main parts: civic engagement, putting together the draft report, the baseline report. What do we know about town, and what are some of the things that we know need to be improved? Identifying the goals and the strategies, because those are incredibly important. And then the last 2 items, implementation, and then the final document itself. So over the course of 2 years, that's what we would typically recommend to a community as a consulting firm, so to speak. So with that, based on the fact that it would take so long and there's a lot of work that's involved, I would recommend that we wait a while, because we've got a lot of special projects that we're currently working on. And taking on an LCP right now would be nearly impossible for staff to do. Alternatively, you could request funding through grants, town meeting, etc., and potentially put out an RFP to hire an outside consulting firm to essentially manage the project for us.
What's the inclination of the board on that?
I can
Put it
tell
way
you,
off, or try and get some funding for it?
I can tell you from having been on it first and through, I don't know how many attempts at completion and dissolution of the groups. It is an onerous task. When I thought we were done, I noticed all these gaps, and I was having to fill them in, going back 5 years in my notes. I don't want to see anything like that again. I really highly recommend that we hire a consulting group person, whomever, because we need to have somebody that is pretty much devoted to mentally put that together and keep it going, to follow these timeframes. When we tried to get people in, Ray Jack was the one who came in, you would remember that. He came in to, I think, go over at least 3 of the elements that we had. We really didn't have anybody else. We had, I don't know, I just don't remember Christiana, but she was just sitting in there.
Yeah.
Whose background, you know her.
And I think the one we did the most was housing, because we went down to who we interviewed a bunch of people, the hospital people, scientists.
Remember, they all said they didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you.
Well, that's, don't
Didn't
interfere with me
we
thing.
discuss that this is gonna happen at one of our regular meetings during the month? I mean, we're gonna set a monthly, one Tuesday a month was gonna be for this?
Yeah, but I think you're hearing that, I don't think that's gonna work.
When did that change? I haven't heard of that
Doesn't
change.
change.
Just now.
Just
Jim.
now.
This is the
Okay.
second
Just a
time we
proposal.
discussed this
Because
now.
you didn't see me raising my hand that I wanted to volunteer. I don't have that kind of time.
Well, I thought we were all gonna be on the meeting, because we're gonna do it at a
No.
regular meeting.
And you heard Jed saying, gee, they've got all the time in the world to.
So we're,
Do all this
we're
together.
not gonna do it on a regular meeting.
I don't think this rules out discussion during a regular meeting.
Correct.
It just means it's one of the elements that gets put into it. What the conversation is about, hiring other people, probably a firm, to work on the planning continuously. So there's a flow of labor keeping the thing moving.
When do they report to the board? How often,
We're looking
see, I
at-
thought the board would be doing this every month.
You're asking a more detailed question than we're ready for.
Except we changed, what I thought we're gonna do is, we'll do it at one of our monthly meetings, and now we're outsourcing it, which means that we, as a board, every month, we won't have any idea what's going on.
Well, no, it could be a subcommittee report.
Right.
Of course, they would come and they would report to
And-
us. Why would we not know? They will give us documents that we can read.
Jim, what you were talking about is we said, yeah, fine, we'll have a 3rd meeting per month instead of the 2 per
Right.
month. I do remember that, but you've got to have the substance to feed into that 3rd meeting per month. And that would take a lot of doing to get that put together. That, I don't know anybody on this board that has the time to really put that substance together, nor do our esteemed planners have that kind of time to put that together. You just heard their report as to what they're buried by.
Jeff has had a lot of experience with this kind of planning. I've had a lot of experience with planning also in the work that I did. And it's my experience that unstaffed planning doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You get to the next meeting,
Yeah.
and
Well, we had
nothing's moved
Marlene.
forward.
Well, we were staffed, we had someone there every,
Right, so
Yeah.
now we're discussing, when will we go looking? Because pretty soon, we'll be working on the next budget. We need to be able to put in a budget request that's adequate to the task.
So we have a consultant instead of a staff member.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't complicated.
oh, it's just different than what I thought we were doing, it's
No,
a
see, I
change.
think it's not different, it's an aspect of it, that conversation, ongoing conversation at the board, will have a firm foundation in new the discussion is sort of
I
like
must have
chewing. You need
misunderstood what we were
things
talking
to
about
chew.
before.
Well, no, it just changed because we've learned what their workload is gonna be, that's all.
I think the majority of communities on the Cape have a consultant. They raise money either through grants or whatever. And they themselves don't do the LCP or the
Master plan.
master plan.
Right.
But I mean,
Really,
it's.
It takes a couple of people, not just one, because I would imagine to make it a good planning process with the topics that we need to cover, the people who are doing most of the substantive thinking on this are people who are in the departments that are in charge of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna turn it over to just a consultant and say, here, do it,
You
because,
need somebody to go meet with them on an orderly basis where they're prepared for it, to be able to talk with them, to take down their thinking, and have that be the guts of the plan. That's where most of the information is going to come from. If you look at these topics, the blue workshop titles, they don't quite completely cover all of the LCP requirements, but they're close, and you'll see that these are really big chunks of information. And we have departments working on it, and they all do planning. They do capital planning now, that's future planning. They do thinking about, oh, if only. You need people to go and capture that, write it down, organize it, and bring it here so that we can start to turn it into a useful document for the town. And I think that that will be an expensive process, and it won't be hiring one consultant who's somehow going to be able to do all this. It's hiring a planning group to do it. But I don't know nowadays what they're going to charge for that.
It's gonna be expensive.
Like, maybe you could get us some ballpark figures?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen master plans go for 150,000.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
But there is grant funding out there. So far, we're 1 for 1 for grant funding requests, actually 2 for 2.
Which is good, good. And it'd be good to get some grants, but there's also town money possibly. The whole town will benefit from this. And I think, just to go back to comment on the work that you've already done, this stretched out, this is a 2-year timeline. Most of the use of planning the document is always good. It's great to have the document. You can refer to it, you can use it in a lot of ways, but it's the process that really does you some good. So the longer the process is, the more you have that kind of nourishment for town thinking, which will be good. So I like the long line.
Yeah, and Jim, to your question, it is a change based on the fact that we just don't have the time. I think that's essentially what I'm trying to say, is that we just don't have the time to staff that.
That's what we should have said, is what we voted for before, we can't do, we don't have the time, so now we're gonna do it a different way.
Yeah,
So we're gonna outsource it, basically.
potentially. It's an idea. Yeah.
It's a good idea.
See, the way I was looking at it is, having been on the local comprehensive plan and met many, many Wednesdays and done it and put a lot of time, but there was a lot of board members that weren't doing it, and they always felt like they were left out because we didn't talk about it in front of them. I thought we were gonna do it at one of our regular meetings, we'd all be there, and that situation would go away. But now that plan's been tossed out, and we're gonna give it to a consultant.
Well, you have to understand that there's still staff involvement off hours from those meetings. that
Oh, I
have to get
understand.
involved, so
It's
that's
just-
why we don't have those
I
hours.
just thought, I was looking at my own personal time and said I'd be present at all those meetings because it's gonna be regularly
well, I
scheduled.
think any consultant is gonna be working with a subcommittee of this.
Yeah, they're not just gonna go
Yeah.
off
I
in
know
blue
a
sky.
subcommittee's different than a
Well,
meeting
they-
at a regular
well,
meeting.
maybe
That's
it's the
my whole
wrong
point.
term, but the consultant is just taking the place of a staff member, that's all.
The point I was trying to make is we're no longer gonna do it at one of our regular meetings. It's gonna be
Not
a
100%,
subcommittee. Okay,
No.
but we never discussed it enough to ever have said that.
but I thought. we
That was
actually-
your understanding at the time.
It was like a
Okay,
3-minute
I made
discussion.
a bad decision.
Yes.
I thought we agreed to that, but we didn't.
Well, I hope that we're still agreeing that we're willing to put in adding the third meeting in order to work with the consultants on this.
And we did that before. We used to do reports to the
We
rest
did.
of the board.
Mhm.
From the sub,
We always did, Bob.
I remember.
Yeah.
I was more comfortable the way we were doing it before, and I guess this is the way it's gonna be, because we can't do it. Don't have the staff time.
Jim, you have to think about whomever is hired, who would be
I,
Marlene. Call it, him, she,
Obviously,
whatever,
there's been some
Marlene.
discussion that I wasn't involved in, and the plans have changed. I'm fine.
No,
Tim, there was no
don't
discussion.
think
It was
that.
just such a quick discussion that we had at the last meeting. And I forgot, I think it was you, maybe, Mr. Leary, who mentioned maybe we could do a third meeting.
Yeah.
And, you know, that made sense, and we talked about it for no more than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then that was it. So, I mean, I think we ought to move on.
I think so too, because all we're doing is fleshing out a conversation that we started. We're not really changing, it's not that
Right.
different.
Okay. Moving on.
So the next thing that we'll see will be some sort of a ballpark figure, and we can start thinking about budgeting for it and seeking the money for it.
Yeah, we can put together a list of potential grant funding opportunities and an idea for, because likely if you were going to request money from town meeting, it would be a capital project.
Right.
I'm guessing that would be the way you would do it. And so that would be November of next year that you'd be requesting that.
That would be another question to bring to them. I haven't seen any planning projects as capital projects. Have you?
Well, so we're going to town meeting this November for capital projects. We're doing the wayfinding plan, finalizing the ADA, or the open space and recreation plan, and,
Right, that's consultant money there. Oh,
yeah,
okay,
exactly.
good.
Right.
Thank you.
You have one more thing?
We were going to talk
Signed bylaw?
Yeah,
jurisdiction, and did everyone get a copy of that?
they did, yes.
I did. It was a question, and the question was answered with the document. It's very definitely the building commissioner, and it came with a lot of other information, which is useful. So, any announcements? Hearing none. General correspondence. We did get a letter, a copy of an old letter from former town manager Julian Suso from the last time the rail trail project, this is not to reopen that subject.
No.
From the last time that came up, and I wonder if you all had a chance to read it.
Yeah.
No, what was it?
It's right here.
The letter from Julian Suso
It's in your pack,
and the Sierra Club,
Very end.
Sierra Club.
under correspondence.
Fine.
So the, if I may, Madam Chair, the Sierra Club email and letter that's attached, we had missed that as part of the correspondence from the last meeting. So I included it in the packet for your,
For tonight.
yeah, for tonight, and
Right.
apologies for missing that.
So it's good to hear that that's their position also, and to see that the town,
Don't talk about it.
hmm?
Don't talk about it.
I can't hear you.
Don't talk about it. It's not on the agenda.
Nope,
May I,
the
may I,
correspondence is,
may I provide some announcement-like
yes.
information? So, to this topic, the Bourne Rail Trail, it appears as though the select board will be taking this item up at a future meeting, which is unknown to us at this point, but likely not until November. I've been advised that at that point, perhaps what can happen is, obviously if you wish to attend, you can go. If you wish to view it online, you could do so as well. And if you want to put it onto a future agenda to perhaps write some comments to the select board about the project and about the item that they have on their agenda, you can do so at that time. And just for the record, no letter has been sent from the planning department on your behalf to anyone about
Right.
the Bourne Rail Trail.
I was interested in looking at your timeline, and the first thing that I looked on the planning was to see when would transportation come up?
Yes,
And I see it's put off for a year.
it's an incredibly important topic.
It is,
Yeah.
but distant.
Yeah.
So that's it for correspondence? Let's see, what else we got?
Future agenda items.
Oh, agenda items, and you had listed some future agenda items on our annotated agenda
Yeah.
of business that's come in. Anything the board wants to add for future agenda items? No.
No.
In which case, our next meeting is October 24th. Would entertain a motion to.
I move adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.